Welcome to Between the Headlines on the Next News Network. I'm Gary Franchi. We've got a lot of news we're going to cover today. We first got our White House rundown we'll be getting to in just a moment. Plus, we're going to be talking about more revelations on the UFO disclosures and what happened in the White House briefing room today with Dr. Oz that has big pharma and welfare crooks on notice and so much more. But first, Gary Franchi here, Next News Network, Chief White House Correspondent, bringing you the latest White House news from the past 24 hours in partnership with our streaming ally, Trump Daily Post. Today's rundown starts with a major healthcare push for American seniors and families, then moves to new Trump administration action on tariffs and artificial intelligence, along with the latest on immigration enforcement, Iran messaging, and the president's schedule at the White House. Now, the top White House development today came from the James Brady press briefing room, where CMS Administrator Dr. Oz delivered a forceful update on lower drug costs under President Trump's healthcare agenda. The White House highlighted that 160 new prescription drugs have now been added to TrumpRx.gov, expanding price transparency so Americans can see costs clearly and shop smart. Dr. Oz also announced that Medicare beneficiaries can now access GLP-1 products with a $50 per month reduction, a concrete cost-cutting move aimed at helping seniors and working families keep more of what they earn. Also, within the past 24 hours, the president advanced a broader America First economic agenda on multiple fronts. The White House said that President Trump issued new action on June 1st, adjusting tariff regimes on aluminum, steel, and copper imports, a move designed to protect domestic industry, strengthen fair trade, and back American workers. On June 2nd, today, the president also signed action promoting advanced artificial intelligence, innovation, and security, underscoring the administration's focus on keeping the United States ahead in critical technology while protecting national security. The White House also kept a hard line on immigration enforcement with new messaging that ICE operations will not be deterred in Newark or anywhere else in America. And on foreign policy, the president's message to Iran remained direct: make a deal, because the current course will not be allowed to continue. And according to the daily guidance, President Trump's Tuesday schedule, it began with some executive time this morning, followed by a 9 a.m. in-town pool call time. The only event on the schedule was the 1 p.m. press briefing that was led by Dr. Oz, while the President's Day also included Oval Office policy meetings and a pre-taped interview in the Roosevelt Room. And from the morning pool report, the conditions were rather calm with a temperature of 62 degrees, no changes to the President's public schedule. The pool noted that Dr. Oz's briefing was the day's sole public-facing event. And from the midday pool update, the White House called a routine lunch lid from 11:30 to 12:30 with no change to the overall schedule. And looking back to last night, the evening pool report noted there was no lid yet as of 7:37, so they were working late, indicating the White House remained active late into the evening. That was followed by the final pool report at 8:16 p.m. last night, when a formal press lid was called, closing out official public activity for Monday evening. Now, taken together, the past 24 hours show a White House focused on practical results: lower drug costs, stronger industrial protection, American leadership in advanced technology, firm immigration enforcement, and a full schedule of policy work behind the scenes. So that's the latest from the White House. Now let's turn to the rest of today's top stories across the country and around the world. So thank you for joining us on this edition of Between the Headlines. Yes, it is 5:33 p.m. Central, and in the District of Columbia, it is 81 degrees right now, sunny, with a 23% chance of precipitation. Yes, we're giving you the weather now here at the Next News Network. So we're going to go into a lot of the stuff we've got in the news right now. So we do have some more information coming to light with respect to what's going on with disclosure and the president's efforts for transparency with respect to UFOs. Yes, everyone's talking about that right now. And we're going to talk about what happened with Big Pharma and Dr. Oz and California. They are now officially on notice. And some interesting developments with President Trump's communications with Israel have now been released. I think you're going to be rather shocked to hear some of the language that was used by the president when addressing Netanyahu directly, trying to rein in Israel right now over their cowboy-like actions in the conflict with Iran and the Middle East. We're also going to be talking about the beautification. We're going to continue our discussion on the beautification of our great nation that President Trump is continuing full steam ahead as we move ever closer to the big celebration of America's 250th birthday. And we also, Newark, Delaney Hall, still in the news right now. Tom Homan making headlines with his latest actions, checking out the facility himself. We're going to talk about that. And we also have some new information on Cuba. Now, according to sources who've disclosed to me, looks like Cuba is the next domino to fall in the MAGA foreign policy world. So we all saw what happened in Venezuela. We saw what happened and is happening in Iran. And right now it is getting ever closer to the day when it looks like we're going to be going into Cuba for an extraction, probably a Maduro-type extraction with Raul Castro. So we're going to continue to monitor all of these headlines and bring you the latest. But first, we have to get into what's going on with these UFOs. And, as you know, I really enjoy these stories simply because, I like disclosure. I like to learn about these technologies and, what is behind the veil, right? Well, President Trump clearly has a mission, and so do many others. And let's get right into it. For years, Americans were told the UFO story was about blurry videos, radar blips, and maybe some secret aircraft the government didn't want to explain. But now the conversation is taking a very hard turn, and it's getting a whole lot stranger. We're no longer just hearing about craft in the sky, we're hearing about portals, biological entities, the Book of Enoch, demons disguising themselves as UFOs, and even whispers that something big may be forcing disclosure right now. This is not just a technology story anymore. It's become a question about reality itself. And once you see where this is going, you can't unsee it. Now, here's why this matters. See, a recent Pentagon file release pushed UFOs back into the national spotlight. And even mainstream outlets are openly asking whether the United States will ever confirm alien existence. Prediction markets now show 17.1% think that happens before 2027. And 28% before 2028, and 36% before January 20th of 2029. And that tells you something important. The public has moved past laughing this off. And then Joe Rogan added fuel to the fire by suggesting disclosure may be building towards an event. Not just another hearing, not just another paper dump, but something profound that people in power may be preparing for. He even pointed to figures like Marco Rubio, Tulsi Gabbard, and Paulina Luna taking the issue very seriously. Meanwhile, Congresswoman Lauren Boebert says files available to lawmakers include references to portals and biological entities. So stop and think about that. We've gone from asking, is there craft, to asking, what are these things? And that's where the story stops being entertainment and starts becoming civilizational. Now, as this conversation pushes people to think harder about the body and the mind and what helps us function at our best, let me tell you what caught my attention for exactly that reason. Now, you have probably seen the clip of Joe Rogan talking with Mel Gibson about people close to them facing serious health struggles and then seeing dramatic improvements. When Rogan brings up light-based therapies, Gibson says that plainly this stuff works. You see, that got my attention. In my own life, I watched my wife deal with constant discomfort and anxiety for far too long. And seeing real relief matters. And that's why I want you to check out Red Light Therapy from Jonathan Otto at myredlight.com. Now, these devices, they're designed to support the body at a cellular level. A lot of people swear by them for recovery, wellness, and everyday support, just like my family. And if you want to try it for yourself, go to myredlight.com. Use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. Now back to the part of the story that should have every American asking whether we're looking at science, secrecy, or something spiritual. Because here's the twist the corporate press still does not know how to handle. The most provocative voices in this discussion are no longer just pilots or Pentagon officials or defense analysts. Now you have religious language entering the file. Rogan says that Luna told him to read the Book of Enoch. Boebert says classified material mentions portals. And the chief exorcist for the Archdiocese of Washington is openly warning that demons may present themselves as aliens, orbs, and UFOs. That is not a fringe side note. That is the story changing shape in real time. And even Matthew Modine is here. You know, the actor. The wait is over. Accidental Truth Next, Beyond UFO Disclosure is out now. Together we explore the new questions humanity must face as the reality of non-human intelligence moves from speculation into public consciousness. What does it mean for our future, our understanding of reality, and for ourselves? And he tags all of these individuals in this film. Burleson, Burchett, who else? I mean, like, the list goes on and on. Now it's available, this new film is on Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, and even YouTube Movies. So this is what has just released in the entertainment world, but is it really entertainment anymore?
Hey, there's aliens.
We already know life exists in the universe.
It's been over 8 years since we heard about the government UFO program, ATIP. Are we any closer to an official government disclosure regarding non-human intelligence?
They briefed us on some stuff that was, frankly, terrifying.
The DoD and the intelligence community is very comfortable saying it's unknown.
What are we actually talking about?
I can't share with you the details, ma'am.
There are those who will stop at nothing to hide the truth.
Whistleblowers are safe. I will guarantee that.
I have no job. My career has been tarnished.
People have been killed.
It's likely a balloon, a bird.
It's starting to sound like a broken record.
Exotic materials are the holy grail.
I was on the team that was supposed to receive that.
What I really wanted to do was put some materials in the hands of Arrow.
That came from a UFO.
My bit is stuck. We'll have to try something else.
I mean, that stuff should have liquefied like mercury by now.
I thought it should have. I have no explanation for that.
This is a technology that has long since bled into what we call consciousness.
I'm here to drop off the samplers.
Could non-human intelligence come in many forms?
Our historical timeline has been interrupted by an alien intelligence.
There is a variety of life forms.
From the earliest times, we've had writings of people interacting with non-human intelligence.
People have accepted these things as real.
All of this has to do with the nature of reality itself.
When I say we're in a simulation, there is something that is computing.
We live in something that has a software program.
It's all about consciousness.
Perhaps we've been guided subtly and deliberately.
All the religions have been telling us that there are other beings.
We're in the middle of a revolution right now.
There is a dark side to disclosure, a secret too terrible to be told.
Our future is post-biological. In a sense, they're midwives or undertakers.
The humans served their purpose.
It may not mean surrendering our spirituality.
You can only beat down the truth for so long.
We're at a point where reality doesn't matter.
We have all new questions. It's time to discover what's next. Accidental Truth, Next, a film by Ron James, narrated by Matthew Modine.
So that is now dropping officially today. The trailer lays out the claim the feds know more than they're telling. Now Joe Rogan says there may be an impending event pushing disclosure faster. He points to Luna, Rubio, and even the Book of Enoch. Joe Rogan hinting at a massive impending event forcing UFO disclosure. Is humanity about to get the truth? Check this out.
I think we're all here for a reason. I think we're here to experience something. something very strange and profound. And there's an event that we're building up to, and I think that's why there's this focus on disclosure. That's why this documentary hit so hard. Guys like Marco Rubio are sticking their neck out, and Tulsi Gabbard and Rep Luna. You know, she came on my podcast too, and she was telling me some stuff that was just like mind blowing. And she really got me to read the Book of Enoch. She's like, you got to read that. Like that is nuts. And that could have easily been attached to the religious canon, but some rabbis disagreed with it because it didn't vibe with the Torah. So like, let's chuck that one out. But it's in the same lump of Dead Sea Scrolls as they have the Book of Isaiah, which is really fascinating because Wes Huff, when he was on my podcast, explained to me that the Book of Isaiah and that they found in the Dead Sea Scrolls is verbatim the same as the Book of Isaiah that was 1,000 years more recent.
Whoa!
1,000 years. So this was the oldest version that they thought was the oldest version, and then they found the Dead Sea Scrolls version, which was 1,000 years older.
So the conversation moves from Rogan's warning about what could be coming to a familiar demand from America's first crowd. And we have this from Donald Trump Jr. Check this out.
Your serious question, will you join the Make Aliens Great Again movement? I mean, this one keeps coming back up. It's serious because we, MAGA, want disclosure. Thanks, bud. Yeah, listen, I want disclosure too. I want to know. I mean, I sort of said, I intuitively think like, of course there has to be something. But I'd like to see the actual evidence. I'd like to know the level of sophistication. If they can get here, they're probably pretty freaking sophisticated. But so I sort of assumed all these things did way before we even got into politics, just because, again, statistics say that it'd be sort of hard to believe we'd be the only thing in a universe as large as ours.
So give your dad a call. How about that, right? Well, Trump Jr. wants the receipts, and it's exactly where this gets darker, because while the public is still getting stonewalled, another Los Alamos scientist has been found dead under deeply suspicious circumstances. 53-year-old Melissa Casias, who worked at the top-secret Los Alamos National Lab, vanished last June. Her remains were just discovered by a hiker with a handgun nearby. Her purse, ID, and phones were left behind, both phones factory reset.
Joins us with more. Todd.
Hey, Brian, after this discovery, we still might have more questions than answers. 53-year-old Melissa Casias had been missing since June 26th of last year. She was working as an administrative assistant at Los Alamos National Lab, where the world's first atomic weapons were developed during World War II. Investigators announcing her remains were found by a hiker in a national forest about 10 miles from her northern New Mexico home, and a handgun was also found alongside her body. When Casias vanished nearly a year ago, her family discovered that her personal belongings, including her purse, IDs, and cell phones, had been left behind, and both phones had reportedly been factory reset. Still unclear how long Melissa's body was there, but her family revealing in a statement that her remains were discovered in an area that had been searched before. Casias is one of at least 10 people with high-level access to sensitive U.S. nuclear and aerospace research who've either disappeared or died under murky circumstances in recent years, at least 3 of whom still remain missing to this day. State police say an extensive investigation into what happened to Casias remains active. Brian, over to you.
All right, thanks so much. The mystery continues. Meanwhile, today, Los Angeles voters headed...
The mystery continues indeed, and we do know that President Trump's ordered the FBI to investigate, but that's the part the media always wants to brush past. The bodies, the secrecy, the reset phones, the missing answers. Now even Fox is admitting the cover-up questions back on the table, with Americans openly asking when the government will finally confirm what it knows. UFOs are back in the headlines after a recent Pentagon file release, 2 of them, and a new Steven Spielberg movie entering the chat right on cue. All the extraterrestrial buzz has everyone asking, will the U.S. confirm that aliens exist?
A recent Pentagon file release and a new Steven Spielberg movie are putting UFOs back in the headlines.
This 79-year cover-up of the truth has to end.
We're interrupting our coverage.
When Disclosure Day actually happens, we're going to have to accept we haven't been alone since the beginning of time.
All the extraterrestrial buzz has us asking, will the United States ever confirm that aliens exist? Our sponsor, Kalshi's prediction markets show more than 17% think the government will confirm alien existence by next year, while 28% think the truth will come out by 2028, and 36% say yes before January 20th, 2029.
So after decades of denial, even the corporate press is forced to ask whether disclosure is coming, but the next voice takes us in a very different direction. The chief exorcist for the Archdiocese of Washington says some so-called UFO phenomena may be demonic and not extraterrestrial. Monsignor Stephen Rossetti, currently the chief exorcist for the Archdiocese of Washington.
Demons indeed can break into the physical world, and at times they can be seen. We actually have some photos of such things, and that we have documented that. Sometimes people will see shadow men. Many people who are possessed will see indistinct dark shadows, possessed houses, globes of light, all sorts of things, and more direct manifestations, evil hands, we've seen that, and actually images of beast-like creatures. So at times, demons will be manifest in this world. I had an incident not too long ago where someone who had a particular gift, and we've documented that gift, and she was shown a picture of a UFO. She said, it's a demon. There's no question in my mind, personally, again.
So the clip pushes the question past nuts and bolts craft into the spiritual. Now Representative Lauren Boebert says Congress has seen references to something even stranger in classified UFO files, portals. The information currently available to Congress includes references to portals and other extraordinary claims linked to UAP investigations.
And in today's world, that's really something. But even in these, even in some of the documentations that I'm seeing, there's a lot to do with even portals. And I'm interested in more information of that coming out as well. But even to be in a congressional hearing and have enough information to ask the question, is there breeding between these biological beings and humans? There's a there that needs to be answered. And I got a lot of heat from local papers at home and some folks, but we're just asking the questions. If someone is going to come to congressional offices and say that they have seen it, that they have been a part of it, and are read into these programs, then it's worth an investigation. And all of these agencies, even the contractors, when they are too big to answer to government, when they were too big to answer to Congress, the entity that created them, and gives them funding, then it's clear that they're too big, and we have got to rein that in and have more accountability.
You know, what you started out with saying that you had heard somebody saying that they believed in the government, or they believed in the alien program or disclosure before the government started talking about it.
So here comes the part that makes this whole thing even darker. Okay? A Los Alamos employee, Melissa Casias, missing since last June, has now been found dead in New Mexico under deeply troubling circumstances. The handgun nearby, her purse, IDs, and phones left behind. Both phones reportedly factory reset. Whether that case ultimately proves criminal or self-harm or something else, the public immediately connects the dots. Top secret lab, nuclear research, unexplained death, missing information. See, that's what happens when trust in institutions has been shattered by decades of secrecy. So the real question is no longer whether Americans believe unidentified phenomena exist. The real question is whether the gatekeepers have hidden something far bigger than aircraft technology. If this is about consciousness, deception, or even spiritual warfare, then disclosure is not just a policy matter, it is a test of whether our civilization is ready for the truth. And that is why this story keeps on breaking out of every box the establishment tries to put around it. It's not staying inside the Pentagon. It's not staying inside Hollywood, and it's not staying inside Congress. It's spilling into religion, philosophy, history, and the deepest questions that we can ask. And let's be honest, under President Trump, the American people are far more likely to demand straight answers than under the secrecy-addicted ruling class that spent years treating citizens like children. Americans can handle the truth. What they can't tolerate any longer is another closed-door game run by bureaucrats, contractors, and elites who think that they answer to no one. So I want to hear from you. Do you believe this UFO story is really about extraterrestrials, yes or no? Or is it becoming something far more supernatural? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this report with someone who still thinks that this is just sci-fi. And if you want the news the establishment will not touch, subscribe to the Next News Network right now. But even better yet, we set this telephone number up just for you so you can join the thousands of patriots who want to receive the information when the notifications and the algorithm decide otherwise. That number is 844-840-4963. All you have to do is text the words raw feed to it, and I won't let you down. And since we are in the age of disclosure and the age of the 250th birthday of our great nation, check out the merch shelf below and find something to celebrate America 250 with us. We are in the age of disclosure, but that is not all. So what do you guys think it is? Is it demons? What is it? What's going on in the skies? What's going on with these orbs? What's going on with this disclosure from the Pentagon? I don't know, that Monsignor? The exorcist? The chief exorcist? I don't know. I tend to lean in that direction, personally. Especially when you start talking about the Book of Enoch and the Nephilim, all those things. I've read the Book of Enoch, and it is a fascinating read. So much explained in that book. If you haven't read it, I encourage you to do so. Dr. Oz, we got to move into what happened in the briefing room today and what's going on now in California. And let's jump into that, Brian. Tonight, the Trump administration just made something very clear. This is no longer only about catching one crooked operator with a fake billing scheme. This has entered phase 2. Federal investigators are now looking at whether entire taxpayer-funded sectors became magnets for abuse and whether the system itself was set up so fraudsters could feast while honest Americans paid the bill. Dr. Oz says that CMS has already suspended payments to nearly half of all the hospices in California. Nearly half. Think about that, right? Think about how big that is. Think about what that means for the people donating to the Democrat causes, right? Where's that money going? And if you think the story ends with just one mansion and some stolen luxury goods, you need to think again, because the real question is who built this mess and who let it happen. And this matters because fraud is not some victimless spreadsheet crime. Every dollar stolen from Medicare, Medicaid, hospice, durable medical equipment, or personal care services is a dollar stripped away from seniors, disabled Americans, and families who actually need help under the Trump administration. That truth is finally being said out loud. Dr. Oz highlighted the work of the White House Fraud Task Force and said the goal is to stop the money before it ever leaves the building. That's America First government in action, not excuses, not press conferences, results. And he also pointed to the human cost. When fraud gets out of control, whole programs can collapse. Honest providers get squeezed, patients lose access, and taxpayers get looted twice. And then you see the visuals that just make your blood boil. An 8-bedroom mansion, Kobe Bryant game-worn sneakers, rare Mickey Mantle cards, all allegedly funded by money extracted from the system. That's not mismanagement. That's organized theft made possible by weak oversight and years of political negligence. Now, before we go further, I want you to pay attention to this, because if you or someone you love is on Medicare, this story hits your wallet directly. See, Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all built to keep you overwhelmed so you pick a plan and never check it again. That's the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it without even realizing it. Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, your coverage options to help you find a plan that actually fits your life. Some seniors who review their coverage can save more than $1,100 a year. And that's real money. So do not guess and do not let the system wear you down. Call Chapter at the number on the screen, 910-728-4109, and get clear answers from someone who will actually walk you through it. Because whether it's fraud in the system or confusion in your plan, the people paying the price are always ordinary Americans. Now here's the part that corporate media will try to downplay. Dr. Oz today didn't just talk about bad actors. He said, quote, "We're going to slow down the growth of these sectors until we can get our arms around the problem." Excuse me. That means hospice, durable medical equipment suppliers, and personal care services are all now under a much tougher microscope. And that is a whole different level of accountability. The story is moving from arrests to system-wide review. And once that starts, a whole lot of bureaucrats and politicians like Gavin Newsom, they've got a reason to panic. Steve Hilton has announced, and he's running for governor of California, he's announced that he's drafted his first executive order for day one if he wins the California governor's race. He says, day one, Gavin Newsom will be under investigation for all the money that's gone missing and lost to fraud. Establishing the California Taxpayer Fraud Strike Force. That's what he's calling it. Make sure that we investigate and prosecute the billions and billions and billions. Notice he didn't say 1 billion, he said 3. It's actually hundreds of billions of taxpayer theft. Taxpayer money that has occurred, theft of taxpayer money has occurred over the last few years, including investigating Gavin Newsom. Check this out.
I want to show you my first executive order as governor of California. Here it is. This will be enacted on day one when I'm governor. This is establishing a California taxpayer fraud strike force. This will make sure that we investigate and prosecute the billions and billions and billions of dollars of fraud, theft of taxpayer money that has occurred over the last few years, including investigating Gavin Newsom, who will be the former governor when this takes effect, Rob Bonta, who will be the former attorney general because my running mate Michael Gates will beat him, and Malia Cohen, the former state controller, because my running mate Herb Morgan will beat her. We will investigate these officials because they were warned about the fraud and they did nothing about it. And that to me looks like criminal negligence. If there is evidence of that, this executive order makes clear we will have the resources and the commitment to prosecute them and to get the money back.
So as you can imagine, Gavin Newsom, while he may have enough hairspray to hold his hair in, he's probably pulling it out right now. He says Hilton says California needs a taxpayer fraud strike force, names the officials. Now Dr. Oz's team is showing what that crackdown looks like, with Dr. Oz saying growth in key medical sectors may stay frozen until the fraud is under control. He hosted the White House press briefing today, as Caroline Leavitt is out on maternity leave. He fills the shoes not just of Marco Rubio or Vice President Vance or even the Treasury Secretary Bessent. He's filling this position today, and he did so quite well, as a matter of fact. Let's go to that.
Industry groups are really concerned about growth and employment getting hurt if that moratorium expands beyond 6 months. Would you rule out an extension of that moratorium, or do you expect that it's going to be expanded?
I'm not going to rule out an extension. We have been talking to industry groups about these moratoria. In fact, just as for everybody watching, all of you as well, we benefit from whistleblowers. Our most important whistleblowers have been members of industry who know the game, know how you can cheat it if you're unethical, and they point out to us when these problems occur. So we do not want to hurt the folks who are earnestly involved in hospice, in durable medical equipment suppliers, personal care services. They're good people in these businesses, but we're going to slow down the growth of these sectors till we can get our arms around the problem, because it is of massive magnitude to us.
Going to get our arms around the problem. It's about stopping a racket of massive magnitude. Next, so you get specific. California hospice fraud got so out of hand that CMS now has suspended payments to 850 providers. Listen.
I wanted to walk you through a couple of these examples because our goal is to stop the money from ever leaving the building. That is the best way to protect the American taxpayer. As you know, we were in Minnesota last week where the largest autism takedown occurred. A mother and a daughter, adult daughter, were accused of tens of millions of dollars of theft. Just to put this in perspective, the reason these are so important is if you defraud the system, you don't just take money out of the system. People steal your money. The money from our most vulnerable Americans are going to steal their health. They'll steal their life. And that's what we have been seeing in some of these takedowns. Unfortunately, when these events don't happen in a timely fashion, you lose the whole program. So in Minnesota, the state itself stopped non-emergency medical transportation, which is when you need someone to take you to the doctor's appointment. They cut the whole program. It's gone. It's finished. Because they could not deal with the fraud. It went from an estimated $1 million a year, how much can it cost to take a card to a doctor's office, to over $100 million a year, so they killed the program. And that, of course, we believe, because it doesn't provide the kind of care we desire for our fellow Americans, can be problematic. We don't want that to happen in other endeavors as well. So we've been working with the state of Minnesota. We're not happy with some of the things we've been encountering as we look at their receipts on the services they provided, which is why we deferred $350 million to the state of Minnesota, and we're waiting to hear feedback from them. Other states have also been problematic. California comes to mind, where we've made several trips of late. 1/3 of all of the hospice in the entire country. And hospice is a precious, beautiful program built in the 80s to take care of people with dignity in the last months of their life. Classically, someone has metastatic cancer, they're going to die. It's going to happen in a few months. You give up your Medicare, because why would you want Medicare? You don't need all those things. Take hospice instead. But that trade has risks with it if you don't actually have a lethal problem. And when 1/3 of all the hospices in the entire country are in Los Angeles, not even California, and Los Angeles, that creates issues. First of all, it's not plausible, but it also means someone's been ignoring the problem. And in fact, there was a call 4 years ago by the state auditor in California to address these problems. It was not managed, so our agency has now suspended payments to 850, almost half of all the hospices in California now have been suspended, but they're no longer being paid. And we're going to keep aggressively going at this problem, because when we go after hospice in California, guess what happens? Hospice in Nevada went up 7-fold. Hospice in Arizona, hospice in Texas, they've all gone up. These scoundrels run to other areas. I just learned this morning, now they're infiltrating the home healthcare space in California, which is equally a problem, because now they're taking advantage of a different sector of the population, this time Medicaid, but using nefarious techniques and technologies to do that as well. And again, these are organized criminal syndicates, we believe, in many instances.
And that's the scale of the machine. Nearly half of California hospice is cut off as CMS tracks what looks like organized fraud. And next, Oz message is simple and direct. The fraudsters know the cavalry is coming. He posted this: our health programs are designed to serve American patients, not fraudsters' bank accounts. My message to the fraudsters: we are coming for you. Dr. Oz vows to crack down on Medicare fraud. They know we're coming after them. So here's what the theft looks like in real life. Federal investigators say one California fraudster used your tax dollars to buy an 8-bedroom mansion, rare sports memorabilia, and live like royalty. Rapid response posting this from CBS Mornings.
LA's top federal prosecutor, Bill O'Saley, showed us around this U.S. Marshal's warehouse.
It should offend every American taxpayer that these people are taking advantage of the system and enriching themselves.
These items had been owned by Paul Randall, who pleaded guilty this year in one of the largest Medi-Cal fraud cases in California history.
He submitted above $270 million worth of claims to the state of California.
Authorities say that money paid for Kobe Bryant game-worn sneakers, baseball cards of Jackie Robinson and Mickey Mantle, and this home, one of 7 properties Randall owned.
Let me tell you what a piece of work this Randall guy was. He's got 6 prior convictions for fraudulent conduct.
Who's responsible for the breakdown of the system?
Obviously, there's a breakdown in the criminal justice system. If this guy was able to have 6 convictions and never did any real prison time.
We turned up a private driveway.
He was living like a king off of us.
Climbing into an exclusive corner of Orange County.
It's 8 bedrooms, 10 bathrooms.
In other cases, prosecutors believe some of the money not spent on luxury goods is sent overseas.
It's much more difficult, if not impossible, for us to trace it or recover it.
Investigating government fraud is a priority for Haywood Talcove. He's been warning officials about scams for 2 decades.
U.S. taxpayers lose $1 trillion a year to these criminal groups.
Where's it going?
It goes to Russia, it goes to China, it goes to Nigeria, it goes to Romania.
By his estimate, of that $1 trillion, roughly 70% ends up in the hands of transnational criminal gangs.
Taxpayers are funding transnational criminals who are using this money for horrible things.
Cars, cards, compounds. This is what fraud looks like after it's already happened. Iseli and Talcove agree.
That is why it is so important that the money never goes out in the first place.
So what does it all really mean? It means that the Trump administration is no longer satisfied with parading one handcuffed fraudster in front of cameras and pretending the job is done. They're asking the bigger question. Were entire service categories treated like extraction machines for politically protected insiders and career scammers? See, that's the heart of this whole thing. When CMS suspends payments to 850 hospices in California and talks about slowing growth across vulnerable sectors, that's a declaration that this structure itself may be compromised. And that's why California matters so much. Steve Hilton is now running directly at this issue, promising a taxpayer fraud strike force and investigations into Gavin Newsom, Rob Bonta, and Malia Cohen, if evidence supports criminal negligence. Accountability is no longer a slogan, it's becoming a governing agenda. And here's the takeaway. President Trump and his team are doing what the previous administration would not do, treating fraud like a national emergency, not like a bookkeeping error. And once you understood that, everything else clicks right into place. The mansion, the luxury collectibles, the fake claims, the suspended payments, the moratorium talk, the California investigations, it all points to one ugly reality. For years, too many taxpayer-funded programs were treated like open vaults. Now the adults are back in charge and the looting class is finally being hunted. That's good for taxpayers. It's good for patients. And it's very bad news for the machine that protected this corruption. If you want more reporting than legacy media refuses to do, share this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to the Next News Network right now, and answer this yes or no question. Should every state launch its own fraud strike force and audit every dollar that disappeared under Democrat rule? Let's have a conversation. But I also want you to text those 2 words you see on the screen, raw feed, to 844-840-4963. That's the number we set up just for you. Thousands of patriots have already texted those words to that number, and they're already bypassing the algorithm. They're getting the notifications from me every single night when YouTube and the notification system and the algorithm decides otherwise. I don't want you to miss the news that you rely on. And I want you to celebrate America 250 with me. Would you do that? Let's do it, right? Hit the merch shelf below, find something nice from America 250 from our new collection, and let's celebrate together. All right. So Dr. Oz knocking it out of the park today in the briefing room. And now we need to talk about what President Trump just exposed in the Middle East game and what happened on that Netanyahu phone call. We're now getting a readout from that. And I think it's going to really shock a lot of people. There's a big shakeup going on between the relationship between Israel and the United States. So let's go ahead and track that story because, oh, Brian's not ready yet. Okay, we're going to get that. Okay, so, and make sure if you have not done so yet, go ahead and give Trump Daily Post a follow. They're our new streaming partner. We're thankful for that relationship. And of course, also give us a follow at Next News. That's our X account, and where we publish all of our content on YouTube, where we have over 2 million viewers, subscribers there, as well as over 2 billion views before I had to personally purge 1 billion views. Personally, I had to purge them during the great demonetization of 2023. That is when YouTube decided that to work, I think, with the Biden administration to make sure that we weren't as effective as we were in 2016 helping elect President Trump. So Thankfully, we survived that because a Google whistleblower came forward and testified in Texas. That's a whole nother story. I'm sure if you went on X and searched up Zach Voorhees whistleblower, you'd find the whole story, especially his testimony in Texas, which is actually pinned. Go check it out. President Trump even shared the testimony that he gave in Texas just a couple of years ago. President Trump shared that just a few weeks ago. And you can imagine our surprise when we checked out his Truth Social and we saw the post right there. Another point I want to make is Trump Daily Post. They have 3 million followers there, and they are right on the edge of every post that President Trump makes on Truth Social. Great content. It is a great resource. We use it here at Next News, and I think you'll find it just as valuable as we do. All right, so let's get into our next story because we need to talk about what's going on that most people are probably unaware of. Tonight, the biggest story is not just Iran, not just Israel, and not even the ceasefire drama exploding across the Middle East. The real story is that President Donald J. Trump is making it crystal clear that America is not a passenger in this fight and not a puppet for anybody, friend or foe, ally or adversary. Everybody is now being told the same thing. If you get in the way of an America First outcome, Trump will run you over. And when reports say that he lit up Netanyahu while tightening the screws on Iran at the exact same time, you realize this has entered a whole new phase. So what is Trump really building here? I'll tell you why this matters. Secretary of State Marco Rubio just gave away the framework in plain English. He said the United States remains the world's sole global superpower. But that power means nothing unless it's used to protect the American people. See, that is the key. The Trump administration is not flexing power for applause. It's using power as leverage to force results. And Rubio hammering it home that Iran is the one under crushing pressure, not America. Their economy losing hundreds of millions of dollars a day. Their currency is wrecked. Their government is struggling. Their navy, Rubio says, basically gone. In other words, the regime is cornered. That explains why Trump can pressure Tehran, pressure Hezbollah, and yes, even pressure Netanyahu all at once. This is peace through strength in real time. Democrats spent years pretending diplomacy meant begging hostile regimes for permission. Well, Trump's flipped that script. He hits first with leverage, then demands terms. And that is what winning looks like. And speaking of seeing big trends before the crowd catches on, this next part matters for every patriotic American trying to protect what they have built. Now, let me ask you, if you could go back in time and you could buy oil before the world relied on it, would you? Of course you would. Anyone would. So why aren't you buying silver right now? The people who spotted oil early, they didn't just make money, they got ahead of one of the biggest economic shifts in history. Today, a very similar opportunity is unfolding with silver. See, silver is more than just a precious metal. It's a critical resource used in solar panels, electric vehicles, defense systems, AI infrastructure, and the manufacturing base that powers the future. That's why so many Americans are taking a very serious look at it right now. Visit nextnewsgold.com to learn more from Noble Gold Investments. And while supplies last, you could qualify for a 1/10 ounce gold coin with your account. Now back to the story, because what Trump did next is what really sent the entire foreign policy class into a panic. While the media obsessed over the profanity in the reported call, they missed the real headline. President Trump came out and shut down the fake narrative that talks with Iran had collapsed. He said reports claiming the U.S. and Iran stopped speaking were false and erroneous. And the conversations continued 4 days ago, 3 days ago, 2 days ago, 1 day ago, and today. That means even while tensions looked their hottest, Trump kept the channel open. Not weakness, control. Not chaos, leverage. And once you understand that, the tweets and statements you're about to see all click into place. So it is official. President Trump has just laid out the final terms on Iran and is in the Situation Room. Huge moves being made.
Gathered with his staff and support to figure out the next steps here. He calls it time for a final determination on whether or not we will see an extension a 60-day extension to the ceasefire in the war with Iran. And in that time, here's what he wants to see. This is what he has put out on his Truth Social. Iran must agree that they will never have a nuclear weapon or bomb. The Hormuz Strait must be immediately opened. No tolls for unrestricted shipping traffic in both directions. All water mines, bombs, if any, will be terminated. And then he goes on to say, ships caught in the strait due to our amazing and unprecedented naval blockade, which will now be lifted, may start the process of heading home. We are awaiting word from the president right now about what happens next. And
so those are Trump's terms laid out in black and white from the Situation Room. Now we get the next piece. Reports he leaned hard on Netanyahu and got both Israel and Hezbollah to back off. President Trump sees the light at the end of the tunnel. Major Iran peace deal could be done this week after he strong-armed Netanyahu and forced Hezbollah to stand down. Trump is delivering results again, working towards a broader deal with Iran that could be closed as soon as this week, telling reporters he still needs a few more points, but momentum is building. He had a heated call with Netanyahu, got tough and de-escalated the conflict with Hezbollah and told Bibi to turn his troops around and not launch a major raid into Beirut, and Bibi listened. Through back-channel talks, both Israel and Hezbollah agreed to stop shooting at each other. Trump posted, I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu today asking him not to go into a major raid. He turned his troops around. Thank you, Bibi. So we have this.
So this coming after the president reportedly had a heated conversation with Israel Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu.
Trey Yinks is live in Tel Aviv with the details for us. Trey.
Yeah, hey guys, good morning. President Trump indicated that a broader deal with Iran could be closed as early as this week, telling a reporter yesterday, quote, I think you're talking about over the next week. I still have to get a few more points. As the president works towards a deal with Iran, he was able to de-escalate the ongoing conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, getting on the phone with both sides. The president said on Truth Social, I had a conversation with Bibi Netanyahu today asking him not to go into a major raid of Beirut, Lebanon. He turned his troops around. Thank you, Bibi. I also had a conversation with representatives of the leaders of Hezbollah, and they agreed to stop shooting at Israel and its soldiers. Likewise, Israel agreed to stop shooting at them. Let's see how long that lasts. Hopefully it will be for eternity. Axios reports the call between Trump and Netanyahu was tense, saying in a piece posted yesterday, quote, summarizing Trump's remarks to Netanyahu, the U.S. official said, you're effing crazy. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your A. Everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this. A second source briefed on the call said Trump was pissed and at one point yelled at Netanyahu, what the F are you doing? At this moment, Israeli troops remain in southern Lebanon, and overnight there were a few sirens in northern Israel from Hezbollah rocket and drone attacks, as well as a small number of Israeli strikes in Lebanon. The Iranians are watching closely the unfolding exchange of fire and words, with Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson saying this.
An obvious reason for the escalation and the atrocities by the Zionist regime over recent days in Lebanon is to destroy even the slightest possibility for the ongoing diplomatic process to lead to improvements in the situation. And again, the U.S. is responsible for this. We can't consider the U.S. and the Zionist regime as two separate agents.
So Trump didn't just set conditions for Iran. He stepped in and slammed the brakes on a wider war. And next, it gets even more blunt with details of the heated call. Fox News posting this morning, as you heard in that last report. This is the readout. You're effing crazy, is what President Trump reportedly said. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me. I'm saving your ass. Everybody hates you now. Everybody hates Israel because of this. That's what a U.S. official told Axios. President Trump unloaded on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during a heated phone call over Israel's military actions in Lebanon. Trump was reportedly furious that Israel's moves risk blowing up diplomatic efforts in the region. At one point, he's also asking Netanyahu, what the F are you doing? So President Trump reining in Netanyahu, acting like a cowboy outside of the America First priorities. But the phone call makes one thing clear. Trump was not about to let Israel blow up the negotiations. Next, Marco Rubio shuts down Cory Booker and explains why Iran is the side that's under real pressure. This was today in the committee.
Now, we're begging to get back into a deal that you all
We're not
trashed
begging.
in the first place.
There's no one begging. I don't
Clearly,
know.
this is a
Senator Booker, your time's up.
But can
Senator
I just-
Rubio, since he's
I do
gone
want to
over,
address
you
some
can
of these points
respond.
because they go to the heart of the matter. No one's begging for anything here. The Iranians might be begging because their economy's losing hundreds of millions of dollars a day. That they are losing. Understand, Iran had street protests going on before all of this started. All of those factors, economic factors in Iran, are far worse today than they were 6 months ago when those protests were happening. They have hyperinflation. Their currency's completely devalued. They're struggling to make payroll for their government workers. Iran is in a very serious situation. And if it was up to the political class there, and I understand everybody there is sort of radical in some way, but if it was up to the people that actually like go to elections and wear the suits and you see on TV, they'd probably make a deal tomorrow. It's the issue they're facing is that the supreme leader and the IRGC Corps are a little bit more immune from those pressures until they can be convinced otherwise. And I think that's the direction that they're moving in, because the reality, I don't know where you're getting this perception that Iran is stronger. Iran has no navy left. They've lost a substantial percentage of their defense industrial base. That Iran has lost a substantial percentage of their missile launchers. And their economy is far worse today, and I mean far worse today, than it was 6 to 9 months ago. And they are looking at hundreds of billions of dollars of reconstruction costs just to get to where they were 6 months ago.
Mr. Rubio, you keep telling.
So Rubio crushing the Democrat spin that Iran somehow has the upper hand, and Trump drives it further in the next clip, saying the fake news chatter was wrong and talks with Tehran never stopped. President Trump reveals Iran was bluffing. Peace talks never stop. Fake news reports that Islamic Republic of Iran and the USA stopped speaking a few days ago are false and erroneous. That's what President Trump posted on Truth Social.
So getting some new comments from President Trump right now on Iran. He's at the White House. Just had a call with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
The president posting this moments ago, quote, I had a very productive call with Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, and there will be no troops going to Beirut, and any troops that are on their way have already been turned back. Likewise, through highly placed representatives, I had a very good call with Hezbollah, and they agreed that all shooting will stop, that Israel will not attack them, and they will not attack.
Okay, big news there. Let's get out to Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin is following it all for us, reporting live from Washington. Hi, Jen.
Hi, Aisha. Well, President Trump also just spoke to NBC and indicated that even if Iran and U.S. negotiators stopped talking for a while, he did not think that that would mean that the U.S. would go back to dropping bombs right away. He was asked if he had heard reports that Iran is suspending talks with the U.S. Iran's leaders indicated they are halting talks due to Israel's expanded military operations in Lebanon and Gaza, where the IDF has now taken over an old Crusader fort 9 miles inside Lebanon, and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has ordered the Israeli military, which now controls 60% of Gaza, to take 70%. President Trump indicated he had not heard that Iran had suspended talks, adding, quote, I think we've been talking too much, if you want to know the truth. I think going silent would be very good, and that could be for a long time. We'll just go silent. We'll keep the blockade. Blockade is a piece of steel. Can he wait them out? I think I can wait as long as they want. They're losing a fortune. Earlier today, U.S. Central Command says it targeted radar and command and control sites on 2 islands controlled by Iran.
So President Trump slamming the fake news reports that the Islamic Republic of Iran and the USA stopped speaking. The conversation between us had been going on continuously, including 4 days, 3 days, 2 days, and even a day ago today. Where they lead, one never knows, but as I told Iran, it's time one way or another for you to make a deal. You've been doing this for 47 years, and it cannot be allowed to go on any longer. So while the media is pushing the line diplomacy was dead, Trump says contact never ended. This is the actual post that President Trump had made, blasting the fake news. But the message is very simple. Iran can bluff, but it can't hide from the pressure. Rubio closes this out by spelling out the America First principle behind all of it. U.S. power is supposed to protect our people, period. This from the Department of State today.
That said, we remain the world's sole global superpower, the most powerful country on earth. We have the largest economy. We have the most formidable and powerful military ever known to man, by the way. Our dollar remains the reserve currency of the world. Our language is used extensively throughout the world to transact all sorts of business and many of our engagements. But all of this means very little if that power is not used to protect the people who built it, the people who it is meant to protect.
So what does it all really mean? It means President Trump is positioning the United States above both sides as the final decision maker, the one power everybody has to deal with. He told Netanyahu to pull back from a major Beirut raid, and Netanyahu turned troops around. He used back channels to get Hezbollah to stop shooting. He kept Iran talking while their economy kept bleeding. And now Trump has laid out the final terms. No nuclear weapon, destroy the enriched material, open the Strait of Hormuz with no tolls, remove mines, and allow ships stuck by the blockade to head home. That's not passive diplomacy. That is command presence. That is America First statecraft where outcomes matter more than anyone's ego overseas. And this is why the establishment's rattled. They can't stand a president who actually uses American power for American interests instead of endless lectures, endless summits, and endless wars. President Trump is showing the world that support from the United States is not a blank check. It is conditional on advancing peace, security, open shipping lanes, and keeping Iran away from a nuclear weapon. The message is being heard in Tehran, in Beirut, in Jerusalem, and in every capital watching this unfold. The Trump administration is not asking whether a deal is possible anymore. It is moving to close it. And if any player tries to wreck it, Trump is making clear that there will be consequences. And that is strong leadership. That is peace through strength. And that is exactly why the America First movement keeps on winning. If you agree, share this video, subscribe to the Next News Network, and drop your comment below, yes or no. Should President Trump keep pressuring both allies and enemies until this deal is finished? Let's have a conversation. And make sure you join the thousands of patriots who've already done so. They've texted those words, raw feed, to that number you see on your screen right there. 844-840-4963. That is the secret number we set up just for you so that you never miss out on the information that you rely on to make informed decisions. When the algorithm doesn't show us in your feed, when the notifications never arrive, I will not fail you. I will send you the important information you need every single night to your phone directly. And since we're celebrating America 250 this year, celebrate with us by checking out the merch shelf below this video. Pick out something and let's celebrate together. All right. Moving right along, that is the Iran update. And now we're going to move into, I wonder if we should go into the Cuba story. And I should tell you guys, I had a really great interview with an individual named Jason Jones today, somebody I met in Washington, D.C. Interview lasted about an hour long. And Jason Jones, he's not just a filmmaker, he is a humanitarian, and he helps disadvantaged minorities in some of the most horrible regions on the planet. Helps extract individuals from these regions from a position of faith. And the interview was amazing. The stories he told. We even touched on what just happened with President Trump's phone call with Netanyahu and a Christian community in the West Bank. Something just happened with them. Absolutely stunning information that he was right in the middle of. So keep an eye out for that interview that's going to drop this weekend. It is something that will definitely blow your mind. It's going to shed light on things that you never even knew were happening behind the scenes in some of these conflict zones. Absolutely remarkable. So that's coming up this weekend, my interview with Jason Jones. Okay, we're going to move into the beautification story of Washington, D.C. Something that is, it's triggering liberals. I don't understand why something making Washington, D.C. beautiful is such a problem. But President Trump is getting ready for the big celebration in Washington for our 250th birthday. And he's doing it in true Trump fashion. What if the biggest story in Washington is not a bill, not a hearing, not another media-fed outrage cycle, but a direct visual rebuke of everything Americans were told to accept? For years, the people running this city acted like decay was normal, graffiti was normal, encampments were normal, dead fountains, damaged monuments, and public spaces that looked abandoned were just the price of modern life. And President Trump is proving that was all a lie. And now the White House is turning restored parks, repaired memorials, and revived public spaces into a blunt political argument that the left cannot answer. And the question is simple. If decline was a choice, who chose it? You see, this matters far beyond Washington, D.C., because the nation's capital is supposed to reflect the strength, dignity, and confidence of the United States of America. When tourists arrive in the capital and see disorder, neglect, vandalism, and monuments falling apart, they're not just seeing maintenance failures. They're seeing the result of an ideology that tolerated collapse and called it compassion, tolerated ugliness and called it equity, tolerated disorder and called it progress. And that is exactly why the Trump administration's message is so powerful, because decline was not inevitable. And according to the White House, in just 14 months, more than 500 instances of graffiti were cleaned up. 153 homeless encampments were removed. 22 fountains were restored. 28 statues were repaired and cleaned, added potholes fixed, debris hauled out of parks and ponds, benches installed, lights repaired, and suddenly the argument becomes unavoidable. Government can restore order when it actually wants to. And that exposes the failed choices made by the previous administration and the Democrat machine that normalized decay. Now, before we go further, if you care about restoring strength in every part of life, this message is worth hearing, because I've tried hundreds of supplements over the years. Nothing, and I mean nothing, has delivered results like C60 Evo. See, this Nobel Prize winning molecule, it actually made lab animals live 90% longer. I take 2 teaspoons of this every single morning. My brain fog gone. Joint pain I've had for years virtually eliminated. My wife's skin looks 10 years younger. My energy levels feel like I'm 20 years younger. Now, take note of this, because this molecule is 172 times more powerful than vitamin C. And it's even worth more than gold per ounce. The scientist behind it, Chris Buries, has been making this in his Houston lab since 1991. Now, let's be clear, this is not just another antioxidant. Okay, it works at the cellular level where aging actually happens. The Paris study, it showed longest life extension in history. And now my family is living proof that it works. There's a link down in the description. Visit c60evo.com/NNN and use code NNN for exclusive savings. Whether you want more energy, clearer thinking, better skin, or just to feel young again, this is your answer. c60evo.com/NNN. Use code NNN at checkout, because 90% longer life starts with one decision. Don't wait. Transform your health today, and you won't regret it. And that brings us right back to a story about what happens when leadership stops managing decline and starts reversing it. See, here's the part that makes this bigger than a cleanup project. The administration is not merely fixing broken things. It's building a visual case for national renewal ahead of America's 250th birthday. That's why the Lincoln Memorial story, why it matters so much. It's not just about a repair crew or a leaking surface. It is about choosing one of the most iconic places in America and saying out loud that this country should look proud again. And once you see the hidden story beneath that monument, the whole message makes sense. So many posts here to go through. It feels good to see people in our capital city enjoying their parks again. Turns out all it took to bring the community back out was cleaning things up and turning the fountains back on. This is just one of the videos posted of the beautiful fountains now functioning again in Washington, D.C. people out enjoying them again as they were intended. Like I said, when tourists visit our nation, they get out of Union Station and they see the decay, they see the decline. That's the message that is sent right to that tourist that these Americans don't really care. But we do care. We do have national pride. President Trump has national pride. And that's exactly what bringing all these monuments and fountains and beauty, bringing it back to life and restoring that national pride. So we don't look like a joke when the tourist gets off that train. I mean, look at these beautiful visuals. I mean, that is all because of President Trump. So what you just saw blows up the media favorite DC narrative on decline. Clean it up, turn the fountains back on, the families come right back out. Now, One American News puts real numbers on Trump's cleanup push. 22 fountains restored, 28 statues repaired, and hundreds of graffiti hits erased. A Daily Caller article released on Monday detailed some of the extensive work that's being done in D.C. since the president launched the Make D.C. Safe and Beautiful Again task force in March of last year. Check this out.
Beauty of the nation's capital city. A Daily Caller article released Monday detailed some of the extensive work that's being done to Washington, D.C. since the president launched the Make D.C. Safe and Beautiful Again task force in March of last year. In just 14 months, 22 fountains and 28 statues were repaired and restored. 500 instances of graffiti were removed, 150 potholes fixed, and 250 truckloads of debris have been extracted from ponds and parks. The task force also fixed and installed nearly 1,200 benches and 1,700 lights in addition to erecting 6 new statues. Interior Secretary Doug Burgum said decline is a choice and that no president has done as much for the safety and beauty of America's capital as President Trump.
You know, I see those fountains, I see the sprinklers going off in the White House lawn, and I'm reminded of when I brought my family to the White House. And my own children did news reports from the briefing room. My youngest son didn't want to do the news report. He was too captivated by the sprinkler system at the White House, and he was playing in the puddles there. And my wife and I were just watching the innocence of a young child just playing in the puddles at the White House in the middle of some of the most historic moments in American history. Just the pureness of that water, the same as the pureness of the water in those fountains, flowing again in D.C. So this isn't just cosmetic, it's a full-scale restoration after years of swamp neglect. Emily Miller goes inside one of the biggest fixes yet. The Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool repair crews say will finally stop the leaking. So here's an update on what's going on with the reflecting pool, which President Trump has stated will be done in just a few weeks. It will be American flag blue and just in time for the celebration of America 250.
Oh, hey, everyone's saying I should ask you all my questions.
Okay, ask away.
Sitting here standing on an expansion joint.
Slab right here has a lip like this that slides under with this one, and this one has the reverse.
Yeah,
I can explain back and forth.
Gotcha. Best day ever in my life.
Exclusive reflecting pool news. Emily Miller, inside Trump's repairs at Cruz, say will finally stop the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool from leaking through the gaps. Yeah, Barack Obama tried to fix it, and as soon as Barack Obama finished, the swamp reclaimed its place. The mold and the algae all just came roaring back to the Lincoln Reflecting Pool. President Trump fixing it the right way. The leaking pool fix shows this operation goes much deeper than a fresh coat of paint. The White House laying out the scorecard from graffiti removal to cleared encampments to a Capitol's being made safe and beautiful again. In just 14 months, POTUS has restored our nation's capital, making it safe and beautiful. Decline was a choice, the White House says, not anymore. 500 instances of graffiti cleaned, 153 homeless encampments removed, 22 fountains restored, 28 statues cleaned, and more. Making D.C. beautiful again. That's the message from the White House. Decline was a choice. Next, we go beneath the Lincoln Memorial itself, where a long-hidden undercroft is finally opening to the public after years of restoration and renewed focus on honoring American history. The undercroft beneath the Lincoln Memorial and its fascinating story that's suddenly in the news because the public can finally see it. The Lincoln Memorial sits on what used to be a swampy, marshy land, the Potomac Flats, that was reclaimed from the river through dredging and filling. When construction started in 1914, engineers knew the soft soil couldn't support the massive marble structure and the huge statue of Lincoln without it sinking. The solution was to excavate down roughly 40 to 50 feet, install about 120 to 122 massive concrete pillars, sometimes called piers or piles. They were driven all the way down to solid bedrock, and the pillars support the entire weight of the memorial above. The huge open space they created underneath, a cavernous, roughly 50,000 square foot structural chamber, nearly twice the size of the memorial itself, is called the undercroft. For 100 years, the space stayed hidden from the public, basically a giant concrete forest of towering pillars holding everything up, with some original construction graffiti still visible on them, even stalactites from water seeping through over time. The National Park Service has turned part of it, about 15,000 square feet, into a new museum and exhibit space. You can now walk in and see the actual massive concrete supports that were put in because of the swampy ground, along with interactive exhibits about the engineering challenges, the memorial's construction, and its powerful role in American history. Check this out. This is remarkable, guys.
Call Washington a swamp is a metaphor, but also the literal truth. So when planning began for the Lincoln Memorial in the early 1910s, builders faced a real sinking problem. Their solution led to one of Washington's best-kept secrets until now.
We are underneath the Lincoln Memorial right here, standing with these 120 massive concrete pillars. They go 50 feet in the ground, down into the swamp, down to the bedrock, to actually support the enormous weight. This is all reclaimed land.
Secretary of the Interior Doug Burgum took us through what's known as the memorial's undercroft, a term usually reserved for the vaulted basement of a medieval castle or cathedral.
Above us is Lincoln sitting in his reflective pose.
At 50,000 square feet, the undercroft is so massive it's almost twice the size of the memorial above. For years, Hollywood's imagined a secret underground to the memorial. And the undercroft really is one.
These are stalactites, aren't? Oh, I just got dripped on.
Yes, they're still active, they're still dripping. And of course, as the rainwater comes through cracks in the granite, it seeps down here, picks up calcium.
Visitors will see it for themselves starting this June in a new museum hanging directly beneath the memorial.
I thought it'd be a good idea is to have more of an educational role for the Lincoln Memorial.
Philanthropist David Rubenstein helped bring the undercroft out of the shadows, donating a quarter of the $69 million needed for its transformation.
You can't really be a great country if you don't really honor your history and understand your history.
He hopes it expands our understanding of Lincoln, whose own life wasn't as grand as the marble above suggests.
He had a very complicated life, had a lot of tragedy in his life. A lot of his children died before they were very old, and had a very complicated marriage as well. But in the end, he rose up to the occasion and became, I think, our greatest president.
Some of the exhibits will also be about the memorial itself.
You know, I think it's still about freedom, hope, and today it's about inclusion.
You know what's interesting? They bring up Mary Todd Lincoln, the marriage between Abraham Lincoln and his wife. And not very far from where I am sitting is where Mary Todd Lincoln was once held in an asylum in her final days in Illinois. I'm reminded of that history every time I drive by the place. So history is all over this great nation, and President Trump is letting it known. But the real punch here is the symbolism Americans can now see crowds enjoying cleaner parks, restored fountains again, but the Lincoln Memorial adds something deeper. Beneath that monument is the massive undercroft, the hidden structural world of giant concrete supports sunk deep into the old swamp ground to hold up one of the country's most sacred sites. For more than a century, people saw that monument without seeing the foundation beneath it, and that's really the metaphor. The Trump administration is saying renewal is not just cosmetic. You repair the physical beauty, yes, but you also repair what supports the nation underneath. Order, safety, civic pride, memory, and respect for American greatness. And that is why this story lands. It turns restoration itself into an America First argument. So as the country marches towards its 250th anniversary, pay very close attention to what the Trump administration is doing in Washington. These are not random repairs. They are connected pieces of a larger mission. Make America's capital worthy of the American people again. Clean monuments matter. Working fountains matter. Safer parks matter. Beautiful public spaces, they all matter. They lift morale. They restore pride and reject the poison of managed decline that the left spent years trying to make permanent. Who can ever forget all of the visuals of radical leftists tearing down our monuments? President Trump is showing the country that when leaders stop making excuses, things can be fixed, and fixed fast, on time, and under budget. See, that is a win for residents, it's a win for visitors, and it's a win for the idea of America itself. If you agree that our capital should reflect strength, beauty, and order, go ahead, hit share right now. Comment below and subscribe to Next News. And yes or no, answer me this. Should every major American city follow Trump's model and choose restoration over decline? Let's have a conversation. And let's stay connected too. I set up this number you see on your screen right there just for you, so that we can maintain connection when the algorithm or when notifications choose not to. All you got to do is text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. Thousands of patriots have already joined this movement to stay connected, to get the news when it matters most to you. And since we're talking about America 250, take a look at the merch shelf below this video or at the link, and let's celebrate America 250 together. All right, folks, we are moving right along. The news stops for no man. We're getting these videos all published for you. So far, we have done our White House report, which should be on the X account and the YouTube channel. We've just previously covered the latest in the UFO disclosures and some new shocking revelations there. That will be dropping on the channel shortly. And now we also have what just happened with Trump and Israel in that telephone call that we now just finally got a readout on. So we're going to be publishing that to the channel in a few minutes. You should see it on your X feeds shortly. That's where we publish the content first, if you want to be ahead of the curve, but also check it out on YouTube, comment there as well. Okay, so we've just covered the decline has now been exposed in D.C., President Trump cleaning it up. But we also have to expose something else. What's going on at Delaney Hall, the hoax has now been exposed. The border czar Tom Homan stepping right into the fold. We've got the news on that. And then we're going to get into what's happening in Cuba. As I told you before, that is the next front. We have special operations units that are currently training in Florida, aircraft carrier group off the coast of Cuba. And I think what President Trump is doing, he's waiting to wrap up the Iran situation before he goes into Cuba to extract Raul Castro, much like he extracted Nicolas Maduro from Venezuela. But, I mean, if President Trump wants to go ahead and pull the trigger, I know he can chew gum and walk at the same time. So we've been paying very close attention to that next front because it is simmering in the background. So we've got new information on that just exploded in Congress today. And we do have some super chats to acknowledge. Thank you guys for supporting us. And we also have Craig, 17 months of membership here. What's up? Great to see you, Craig. And there was, let's see the super chats real quick to acknowledge. We got Tom and Bella dropping $10. Thank you very much. Again, Tom and Bella, $5. Craig also dropping $5, and Chris Orr dropping $10. So we certainly appreciate everybody, chipping in. Many hands make light work, and every penny adds up. So we do appreciate when you guys contribute through the super chats on our YouTube channel. Over 18,000 people watching right now across all platforms. We're broadcasting with our new broadcast partner, Trump Daily Post. Great X account. If you haven't followed them yet, please do. We're also simulcasting on our own X account, Next News, as well as on our Rumble channel and our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel has been in play for, I think it's been like 15 years now. And over the course of those 15 years, over 2 billion views. And we helped elect a president, and we paid the price for it. Because if it wasn't for us, I have to say, I don't think YouTube would have changed the algorithm. Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to the Zach Voorhees whistleblower who brought out the documents from Google that specifically listed our name in those documents and how they would suppress news following the 2016 election. So, I'm sorry that it's probably my fault that the algorithm is all screwed up on YouTube, but I'm not sorry for helping elect a president to make this country great again. Right? No good deed goes unpunished, and we're sort of used to that here at Next News. But let's continue now with our next report about what's happening at Delaney Hall and what Tom Homan is exposing. Tonight, the anti-ICE narrative is blowing up in the left's face. President Trump is tightening the screws on the money pipelines behind illegal immigration. A cross-border tunnel turns up near San Diego with lighting and ventilation. A suspect accused of ramming ICE agents gets indicted. Another alleged anti-ICE rider accused of biting a federal officer. And then comes the moment that completely wrecks the media script. Tom Homan personally walked into Delaney Hall, sat down with detainees, and ate the exact same meal they were served. So why were Democrats still pushing a hunger strike story that appears to be falling apart? Now, this matters because the fight over immigration is no longer just about the borderline on a map. It's about whether the United States remains a sovereign nation, whether law enforcement can do its job, and whether activists and Democrat politicians can manufacture outrage to obstruct deportations and detention. The Trump administration is making clear that the era of excuses is over. Dr. Oz, now serving at CMS, says California was told that it owes the federal government $2 billion after illegal immigrants were allowed to tap taxpayer-funded health care programs. He says half has already been recovered. At the same time, Mexican authorities found an 869-foot tunnel in Tijuana, likely reaching towards San Diego, complete with lighting and ventilation. That's the kind of infrastructure cartels build when they think that the system is weak. That weakness was tolerated during the Biden administration. Under President Trump, the message is the exact opposite. Enforce the law, defend the homeland, and back the agents on the front lines no matter how loud the left screams. And while we're talking about restoring strength and function where it matters, I need to tell you about something that caught my attention in a very personal way. Now, you've probably seen the clip, Joe Rogan sitting with Mel Gibson talking about people close to him who went through serious health struggles and then saw dramatic turnarounds. Rogan brings up light-based therapies and how they impact the body at the cellular level. Mel Gibson just says it straight. This stuff works, and that got my attention. In my own life, I watched something very similar when my wife dealt with constant discomfort and anxiety for too long. And that's why Jonathan Otto's red light therapy approach stood out to me. And if you want to learn more, go to myredlight.com. See what options may fit your routine and use NNN25 for individual items or NNN30 for bundles. It's simple, it's not invasive, and worth a very serious look for recovery, energy, and overall wellness. Now back to a story where the facts are finally breaking through the activist noise. Because here's the part the corporate press just can't spin away. See, this is not just about rhetoric anymore. It's about crimes. It's about cash. But most importantly, it's about consequences. President Trump has now announced a powerful executive order aimed at stopping banks, credit cards, and financial institutions from being used to facilitate human smuggling, drug trafficking, illegal immigration, and cartel operations. In other words, the Trump administration is not only arresting the foot soldiers, it's going after the financial arteries that keep the invasion machine alive. And once you see the posts, video tied to Delaney Hall, the whole Democrat storyline gets even shakier. So Tom Homan reveals he personally went inside Delaney Hall ICE facility to eat the food himself, confirming leftists are lying about the hunger strike. Listen.
Like I said, we addressed that in New Jersey, and we got local law enforcement, state law enforcement to finally do their public safety job. But we got to remember what started all this. You got Democratic lawmakers on Memorial Day making false allegations about the facility, about the food, the medical care, hunger strikes. I went into that facility. I went to the medical. I went to outdoor recreation, indoor recreation. I even made a surprise visit this weekend and walked into the cafeteria and ate the same meal that the detainees around me were eating. And I made sure my tray equaled their tray. I had spaghetti and meat sauce. I had beans. I had green beans. I had bread and rolls. I had drinks. I had dessert. The food was good. It's all a false premise. There was never a hunger strike. The congressman said, oh, people are on hunger strikes. No, they weren't. They may not be eating in the cafeteria, but what I found out, they're ordering food from the commissary and eating in their cells. So there wasn't any abuse. It's not inhumane conditions. I went to the entire facility. I ate the same meal they ate. That facility is well run, and the governor keeps saying she's going to keep raising hell if that facility shuts down. Well, I got news for the governor. That facility isn't going anywhere. We're going to enforce the law. We're going to detain people, and we're going to remove people. Matter of fact, a lot of the people in that facility we couldn't release because they're mandatorily detained by federal statute. So we couldn't release them if we even wanted to. But we're not going to release any of them. Everybody in that facility I have ascertained is legally being detained.
Legally being detained. Homan blowing up the Delaney Hall hunger strike story by walking in and eating the same tray himself. Now Congressman Brandon Gill takes it wider, giving ICE and Border Patrol full-throated credit for protecting American neighborhoods. Listen.
ICE and Border Patrol are on the front lines of not only defending American sovereignty, but keeping our communities safe and ensuring that murderers and rapists and gangbangers are not running loose within our neighborhoods. These are the guys who are making sure that America stays America, that it is a place where we can raise our kids safely and in communities that are conducive to American flourishing. And we're so thankful for the work you guys have done.
So the point is simple. These agents are the line between order and chaos. And in Chicago, one man alleged to try to ram ICE officers with an SUV is now facing the kind of charges that make the message clear. Libs of TikTok reports that Diego Emmanuel Reyes, who was caught on camera, you can see right here, ramming his SUV into ICE agents during Operation Midway Blitz in Chicago, has now been indicted on charges including assaulting ICE with a deadly and dangerous weapon. And now he's learning what it means to FAFO. Yeah. Next time, you may want to just keep it in park, buddy. So the indictment shows what happens when attacks on ICE meet real consequences. Back at Delaney Hall, DHS says one violent ICE rioter with a sick criminal past allegedly bit an officer is being prosecuted to the fullest extent. This is from Homeland Security. This violent rioter, who has a criminal history that includes distributing CP, savagely bit an ICE law enforcement officer outside of Delaney Hall. Trump administration will always stand with our law enforcement officers. Anyone who assaults law enforcement will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, just like this monster. Let me see if I can get the attachment to that post. Okay, here is the actual post itself. This is the arrest, and this, look at that. Disgusting. I think we can get a better shot here. This is actually from the New York Post. They were quote tweeting. Anti-ICE agitator allegedly bit officers during the protest, previously accused of distributing that. Okay. So as you can tell, President Trump is not holding back with his agency there. So while the left cries abuse at detention centers, people assaulting officers are the one piling up to criminal charges. And now we have Dr. Oz shifting to the policy fight. Oz says Trump's tax cut law is also shutting off taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants. This is from the press briefing room where Dr. Oz was filling in for Caroline Leavitt, who is on maternity leave. Listen.
Well, we are tracking illegal immigrants taking advantage of all health care plans. We've already recouped, or we've actually told California they owe us $2 billion. We've got half of it back already. I'm confident we'll get the rest because they have state-based programs that we don't have a lot of visibility into, but because of the Working Families Tax Cut legislation and other rulemaking, we are no longer allowing foreign folks who are here illegally to benefit from these programs. And just to put it in context, in California, if you're on Medi-Cal, the Medicaid program in California, until this administration, you got full dental and full vision benefits. Now, I'm for those benefits. I like them, but we don't give that to Medicare patients. And so we should at least be equitable, and all of us together should decide what we are going to do as a nation. So if we as a country decide we're going to go in one direction, you can't have states splintering off if they're going to spend the other people's money. The fraud, for example, that I'm talking about and the use of money for illegal immigrants, the people who pay that bill when it, for example, the largesse of California allows folks to get benefits that the rest of the country doesn't think is appropriate for illegal immigrants or home health care providers, that money's paid by folks who are taxpayers in New Mexico, which is a blue state, and Mississippi, a red state. So this is not partisan. Everybody is taxed extra and has to put more into the kitty because some states are doing things that we don't think as a country, well, we would like to have happen. That's why this administration has been so dogged in this issue and why the president has been so aggressive.
Wow, he just nailed it. Bigger crackdown. Fewer benefits, less fraud. No more blank checks for people here illegally, and the border threat's real. Mexican authorities uncovering an 869-foot tunnel near San Diego built for trafficking. ABC News on this one.
Shocking new video shows a cross-border tunnel in Tijuana that likely connects all the way to a well-known street in San Diego. This tunnel is about 870 feet long, 21 feet deep, and has operational infrastructure, including lighting and ventilation. Mexican authorities found the tunnel while they were carrying out a search at a residence looking for firearms and explosives. Officials say that the property may have been used as a storage, logistics, and trafficking center for weapons, explosives, and other substances. DHS says it will conduct an investigation.
They even have like a little train car so they don't have to crawl and hurt their little knees. Unbelievable. But that's a perfect picture of what open border insanity creates. Organized pipelines for crime, which brings us back to Newark. Mayor Ras Baraka still pushing to shut Delaney Hall down, despite DHS calling the whole thing political theater. Andrew Colvett writes, the New York mayor, Ras Baraka, claimed Delaney Hall should be shut down because there's actual irrefutable evidence the place is uninhabitable. And I think that Tom Homan just broke that narrative.
Making a new push to shut down this facility. How is this time, this expanding of the lawsuit, how is this going to be different this time?
Well, the first time our argument was based on the code enforcement, UCC, our inability to have access to the facility, saying that some of the conditions may be inoperable and it should be shut down because they didn't go through the normal procedures. Right now, we have a letter from detainees that speaks specifically and outlines some of the conditions there. So we actually have plaintiffs. We have, the health department from the state and our health department demanded access and was denied access to these facilities. So we're expanding it now on the health and human conditions that are in there. And we believe that it should be shut down because we have actual irrefutable evidence now that the place is uninhabitable.
Yeah, I think Tom Homan broke that narrative real quick. Keeps telling the same story, Baraka, but the facts keep wrecking. President Trump escalating the fight with a new executive order aimed at banks and financial networks that help fuel illegal immigration and cartel activity. In a quite lengthy post on Truth Social, President Trump had this to say. Let me bring it up for you. Illegal immigrants and foreign fraudsters stealing billions every year from the American taxpayer. As part of my administration's historic effort to end fraud and reverse mass illegal immigration, I recently signed a powerful new executive order which will be led by the Treasury Department to stop banks, credit cards, and financial institutions from being used to facilitate human smuggling, drug trafficking, illegal immigration, and the criminal cartels who orchestrate these activities. Access to our nation's financial systems must be limited to those who have a legal right to be here and who are engaged in lawful and legitimate commerce. Bank accounts being used to enable illegal immigration or to store the welfare received by illegal aliens will be shut down, and funds will ultimately face impoundment and seizure so they can be returned to taxpayers. It is not ludicrous but profoundly dangerous that any illegal alien can simply present a blue state driver's license or Biden border document and have unrestricted access to the U.S. financial system. This also sends a clear message to the anti-ICE rioters that your violent disruptions are only strengthening our resolve. My executive order will also allow us to stop billions in leaving our country in all manner of criminal activity. It has been said that this measure we are taking is the most effective means of reversing Biden's border invasion. We shall soon find out. President Donald J. Trump. So what this really means is quite simple. The anti-ICE movement is being exposed as a protection racket for chaos. DHS says that one violent rioter outside Delaney Hall had a criminal history involving CP and is accused of savagely biting an ICE officer. In Chicago, Diego Emmanuel Reyes has now been indicted after ramming his SUV into ICE agents during Operation Midway Blitz. These are not peaceful truth tellers. These are the kinds of people attacking the very officers trying to remove the predators, the gang members, and public threats from our communities. Then Tom Homan himself walks into Delaney Hall, tours the facility, inspects medical and recreation areas, eats the same tray as detainees. Spaghetti and meat sauce, beans, green beans, bread, drinks, dessert. His verdict, the food was good. The so-called hunger strike was bogus. And that's why this moment, why it matters so much. President Trump is keeping his promise to restore sovereignty, shut off fraud, and stand with the men and women who protect this country. While the Newark mayor, Ross Baraka, pushes claims that Delaney Hall is uninhabitable, DHS says detainees receive the meals, the medical care, the bedding, recreation, and access to family and lawyers. And Tom Homan did what almost no politician on the left would ever dare to do. He showed up, looked for himself, and put the narrative to the test. Meanwhile, conservatives like Congressman Brandon Gill, they're saying what millions of Americans already know. ICE and Border Patrol are on the front lines making sure America stays America. If you're tired of the lies and you're tired of the excuses and proud to see the Trump administration finally backing law enforcement with action, share this report, subscribe to the channel, comment below. Yes or no, should every politician caught smearing ICE with false claims be forced to answer for it publicly? That's a conversation that we need to have. We also need to have you text the words raw feed to that secret number on the screen that I set up just for you. Thousands of patriots have already done that. They are bypassing the algorithmic suppression. They're getting the notifications that they're waiting for but never arrive. They're getting them from me instead. I won't let you down when the algorithm decides otherwise. Text raw feed 844-840-4963 and celebrate America 250 with us. Check out the merch shelf below this video or at the link and find something you like, and let's celebrate together. All right. Tom Homan on the case there, exposing the hunger strike. It's amazing. It's just amazing. You know, I really feel for these guys in this administration. What they have, I mean, the rhetoric that they're up against every single day. And it comes from all sides. It's not just the politicians. It's those members of the media. And that's why I'm thankful for President Trump for inviting me into the press briefing room to see firsthand what's happening, to report the truth, honestly, because that's what the American people deserve. Not twisted narratives that fit a political agenda, but real action, real information that you deserve. So I'm thankful for President Trump inviting me to be a White House correspondent. But now we need to talk about what's going on in Cuba, because as I've said before, that is the next front that's going to open up very soon. Mark my words. And we're going to go back. We're going to take a look at some remarks from the cabinet meeting. But most importantly, what just happened today in the committee meeting. Some of the remarks from Marco Rubio going head to head. And we have some information from Cuban state media. I found some video, translated it so that you can understand exactly what Cuban state media is reporting. And also what's happening with the blackouts in Cuba. And even another local report that backs up what the Cuban state media is reporting. So getting all of our bases covered here. Tonight, the real Cuba story is not just that the lights went out. It's that Washington is starting to talk like the entire communist system may be beyond repair. Think about that. An island just 90 miles from Florida, sitting in darkness, run by a military-linked economic machine, with Secretary Marco Rubio now saying the people in charge may not be capable of the reforms needed to stop the collapse. What does that tell you? That tells you that very soon we may see an invasion of Cuba, much like we saw with Nicolas Maduro. Now, this is not routine foreign policy talk. That's a warning flare. And if the Trump administration believes that Cuba's failure is structural, not temporary, then the question changes very fast. What happens when survival is no longer the assumption? See, this is where the stakes get very real for America. The blackout that's happening right now across Cuba, it matters, not just because of the dramatic images. Blackouts are a symbol of something deeper: failing infrastructure, empty state coffers, collapsing public confidence in a regime that cannot deliver the basics of modern life. Secretary Rubio is making the point with usual clarity. He says Cuba is not truly run by a normal civilian government at all, but by GAISA, a military holding company that reportedly dominates huge sections of the economy, while ordinary Cubans suffer. That means the issue is bigger than who gives the speeches in Havana. The issue is who controls the money, the assets, the system itself, and the Trump administration is framing this exactly right. A failed communist state 90 miles from our shore is not just Cuba's problem. It is a national security concern for the United States, especially when Rubio also points to Cuba's long record of supporting radical terror networks and hosting hostile intelligence activity. Now, before we go further, I need you to pay attention, because protecting your family from bureaucratic chaos, it matters here at home as well. If you or someone in your family is on Medicare, then this directly affects your wallet. Medicare is confusing by design. The mailers, the robocalls, the fine print, the commercials, it's all built to keep you overwhelmed, so you pick a plan and you never look at it again. That's the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and seniors are paying for it without even realizing it. See, Chapter is simple by design. One call, one advisor. They look at your doctors, your prescriptions, your needs, then help you compare plans very clearly. And some people could save more than $1,100 a year just by reviewing the coverage. Don't assume your current plan is your best plan. Call Chapter at 910-728-4109. That's the number you see right there on your screen. And get real help from someone who actually works for you. Now back to the Cuba story, because what Rubio said next may be the clearest signal yet of where this is all heading. See, this is what the corporate media will try to blur out. Rubio's not talking like this is a temporary shortage or a one-off emergency. He's talking about a structure that may be fundamentally broken, and he flatly said that the system needs serious reform and that he does not believe that the current people in charge are capable of delivering it. That's a massive tell. Once officials start talking less about patching the crisis and more about whether the regime itself can survive, you are no longer in normal diplomacy. You are now in transition territory. At the cabinet meeting last week, Secretary Rubio made it very clear. And I've got some clips here. This is from the cabinet meeting, but what happened in the halls of Congress today with Rubio squaring off against the Democrats was explosive. But he said that Cuba is in a lot of trouble. That's the pretext. Listen.
Cuba's in a lot of trouble because, unfortunately, for them, it's run by a bunch of incompetent communists. And being communist is bad. Being an incompetent communist is like the worst. And but the country's been taken over by this company called Gaesa that basically controls 70% of the economy. None of the money in that company goes to help the Cuban people. None of it. So we'll be talking to them. We'll be working on it. You know, we want something good for the Cuban people, and hopefully there'll be a good outcome there for them. There needs to be. It's 90 miles from our shores, and having it a failed state 90 miles from our shores is a threat to the national security of the United States.
Cuba's next, folks. I'm telling you. Rubio calling Cuba a failed communist state sitting 90 miles off our shore. Now he drills down on the machine behind the misery. The military conglomerate Gaesa, which he says controls virtually everything. This is directly from the Department of State today.
I mean, Cuba's a very different thing. Yeah. I mean, I think the misnomer about Cuba, or the misunderstanding about Cuba's actually not controlled by the government. Cuba's controlled by a military holding company named Gaesa. And Gaesa virtually owns anything. They own the tourist sector, they own mining, they own the gas stations, they own everything. They generate about 70% of Cuba's GDP is under the control of this military company. And they're sitting on between $14 and $17 billion in assets. So you have people literally starving, people literally like power grid that hasn't been maintained in 10 years. And yet you have this holding military company sitting on these assets. And by the way, not a penny of the money in the military holding company translates over to the public treasury. So the fundamental challenge we have here is that Cuba needs to be, in order for it not to continue to be a failed state, which poses a threat to the United States, they need systemic and serious reform. They need to have economic reforms. And the question is, can they possibly reform, given the people who are currently in charge, both of Gaesa and of their government? And I think the answer is they can. I really don't believe this system is capable of reform unless new people take over.
Unless new people take over. So it's not just bad government. Rubio says the real power sits with the military empire hoarding billions while Cubans go hungry. Next, he goes a step further and says the system won't change unless new people take over.
So the fundamental challenge we have here is that Cuba needs to be, in order for it not to continue to be a failed state, which poses a threat to the United States, they need systemic and serious reform. They need to have economic reforms. And the question is, can they possibly reform, given the people who are currently in charge, both of Gaesa and of their government? And I think the answer is they can. I really don't believe this system is capable of reform unless new people take over or a new mindset takes hold. Now, we've engaged in conversations with them. We've offered them what I think needs to happen in order for their economy to recover. And that's the last point I would make, because I think somebody raised this issue of an oil blockade. Cuba was having blackouts well before January 3rd of this year. They were having blackouts for years. And they were having blackouts for two reasons. Number one, no one will give you free oil except Maduro. That's what's changed here. What's changed here is they're no longer getting free oil from Venezuela. And number two, the main reason why they have oil energy blackouts is because they didn't invest a single dollar back into their plants, back into improving their plants. And they could have bought this equipment from any company in the world, but they didn't invest in it. Instead, they invested it to build tourist hotels that now sit empty. because there's no tourism into Cuba. So Cuba's a little bit more complicated than Venezuela, but it's a mess.
It's a mess. His message blunt: the regime can't fix itself. Next, he lays out why this isn't just tyranny at home. He says Cuba has spent decades backing left-wing terror across the entire hemisphere.
Cuba has sponsored terrorism, and it's been supported groups. For example, virtually every left-wing, radical, violent terrorist group in the Western Hemisphere has at some point relied on support from Cuba. The ELN, the FARC dissidents, including them, have been involved there. We also know, for example, that Cuba continues to host a pretty substantial collection intelligence sites on behalf of the Chinese and the Russians. But you look at the region and you look at all of these leftist Marxist terrorist organizations, all of them, in many cases, got their seed money from the Cubans.
The case is clearly being made by Marco Rubio that the invasion of Cuba is imminent. And that is why Cuban state media is reporting that revolutionary naval units held coastal missile and combat diving drills to repel any potential future U.S. invasion. Check this out. This is from Cuban State News.
As part of the ongoing combat readiness training of the Revolutionary Navy, coastal missile units successfully carried out a practical exercise within the Sandino Cabañas defense zone of the Mariel municipality, specifically aimed at engaging enemy landing craft. This maneuver effectively put the strategy for these specific scenarios into practice. Furthermore, a combat diving and coastal missile firing exercise was also conducted, meticulously reproducing the most complex conditions of a real-world situation. In this way, the engagement provided the combatants with the opportunity to prepare themselves in the precise direction and execution of fire under highly demanding operational conditions. This crucial action ensures they acquire the essential experience required to effectively confront any military aggression.
Onward to victory. Always!
So, Cuban propaganda. The drills may look tough, but back on the island, the regime can't even keep the lights on. This next report shows Cuba hit by total blackout with the power grid collapsing across the entire country. Representative Hugh Blackwell, just in total blackout across all of Cuba, the entire island, virtually zero electricity as U.S. oil and energy blockade tightens. Power plants dead, streets dark, regime in panic.
Now at Havana, Cuba, where the power is out across the entire island. According to local officials there, Cuba is under a U.S. energy blockade. It has not had any oil shipments in 3 months. Chief Washington correspondent Mike Emanuel reporting live on the huge changes and the difficult situation.
Difficult situation indeed. Watch the oil tankers. That's what I've been told. Watch for the Russian oil tankers. So while the communist regime stages war games and its grid falls apart, the big question is what a real confrontation would look like. Next up, a breakdown of Cuba's actual military strength. 50,000 troops, aging aircraft, Soviet junk, and well, the aftermath could be the real fight. On paper, it's not a fight. In practice, it could be a quagmire, says Mario Nafal.
Tonight, the chief of Cuba's armed forces joining military drills on the island in the face of increasing U.S. pressure. Questions tonight about Cuba's level of preparation for possible U.S. military action. Here's Cristina Vasquez.
Our military capabilities, as we have seen, even in Iran and other places, are very strong.
And if the U.S. is weighing military intervention in Cuba, Local 10 Cuba analyst Dr. Andy Gomez told us this about the communist island's military.
They have 30 airplanes, all makes, about 3,000 all equipment of, tanks, personnel movement, 50,000 regular soldiers. That's pretty small.
Aging Soviet-era equipment, explained to FIU's Defense and National Security Research Vice Provost, Dr. Brian Fonseca.
If they were to do a smash and grab kind of operation like they did with Nicolas Maduro, they would probably meet very little resistance.
But one wild card, he says, is if there is a pronounced U.S. presence on the ground, the potential of a guerrilla warfare strategy from militias comprised of Castro regime loyalists.
It has to be careful it doesn't engage the Cuban people. And that might, bring the Americans into a more pronounced conflict, and that would be a disaster for domestic policy too. especially as we lead into the November 2026 midterms.
And as high-stakes negotiations between the U.S. and Cuba appear to stall, Cuban officials say they are prepared to defend themselves.
Survive through repression, censorship, fear.
As U.S. leaders continue to make the case for intervention.
The desire for freedom has never disappeared.
That's Republican Congressman Carlos Jimenez speaking at an event at Miami-Dade College hosted by World Affairs Council of Miami's Aaron Rosen.
Cuba would not really be able to match up to the United States in a one-to-one conflict. However, if the U.S. and Cuba did find itself at war and the U.S. decimated Cuba's military, it would very soon find that it inherits Cuba's political future. And there are very big open questions about what that might mean for what comes next.
This as public opinion on this issue remains polarized. While surveys here in South Florida found the majority of Cuban Americans support U.S. military intervention in Cuba, national polling has found the majority of Americans do not. Glenna?
Christina, thank you.
And that is the local news there. So, what does it all really mean? It means that the Trump administration appears to be looking at Cuba and seeing not an isolated blackout, not another propaganda cycle, but a communist system rotting from the inside out. Rubio's framing is the key. National security, governance, economic control, and long-term stability. That is the new center of gravity. When he says that Cuba needs serious systemic reform and doubts the current rulers can pull it off, the message is obvious. Washington is weighing the possibility that the regime can't fix itself. The military drills out of Havana may generate headlines, but they also look like panic theater from a crumbling dictatorship. The real fight's not over missiles or slogans, it's over whether Cuba's power structure can endure another round of failure without breaking apart. So the bottom line is this. The darkness over Cuba is not the story by itself. The darkness is the symbol of communist failure, regime corruption, and institutional decay just off America's coast. President Trump's administration is right to treat that as a serious U.S. concern, and Secretary Rubio is saying out loud what too many weak-kneed diplomats refuse to admit for years. This problem is structural. If Gaisa controls the wealth, if the regime cannot keep the power on, if the people are starving while the military-linked elite sit on billions, then this is not a reform issue or on the edges. It's a legitimacy crisis at the core. And once that becomes the conversation, everything changes. So I want to hear from you. Do you believe that this communist regime in Cuba can reform itself? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments and share this video with someone who still thinks that communism only fails in theory. If you want more America First reporting the corporate media won't touch, subscribe, turn on your notifications right now. But most importantly, you see that secret number I've posted on the screen right there? Thousands of patriots have already texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. They're getting the notifications that they're hoping YouTube would send. But they're getting them from me. They're not waiting for the algorithm to determine what's good for you. Because you're here for a reason, and you want the truth. I will not let you down. I will give you the truth every single night. A simple text message right to your phone from me. Celebrate America 250 with us, would you? Check out the merch shelf below this video, and let's celebrate together. All right, folks, that's a wrap for this evening. I want to thank you for joining us on another live edition of Next News Network. Between the headlines, 24,000, almost 23,000 people tuning in to the broadcast tonight. A special thanks to our new streaming partner, Trump Daily Post. Make sure you give them a follow on X. And of course, give us a follow on X at Next News. And if you haven't checked us out on Rumble or YouTube, what are you waiting for? Check us out there. On YouTube, we have over 2 million followers and over 2 billion views since we started this channel and helped elect President Trump in 2016. So we thank you for watching, thank you for tuning in, and thank you for being an American patriot. Have a wonderful night, and God bless America.